you checked out all the new handicappers at WagerTalk? If not, here's your chance. You can take 50% off your first daily or 3-day all-access purchase at WagerTalk using coupon code TRYWT. Our new roster of experts is 30 deep, covering sports from all around the world, giving you tons of options to choose from. All you have to do to redeem this offer is go to WagerTalk.com, choose a handicapper of your choice, and use coupon code TRYWT at checkout, saving 50% on your first purchase.
Welcome into First Pitch, WagerTalk's premier MLB betting show for Tuesday, May 18th. We're breaking down 4 games, best bets at the end. We got 2 great MLB handicappers alongside here, Steve Merrill and Dave Koken of WagerTalk.com. Dave, coming to you first, buddy. You got a MLB best bet, some NHL up on the site as well. Welcome in. Happy Tuesday morning to you, Dave.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. Good to see Steve as well. The hockey's been just sensational. It's been such a good season, and I've got a money line parlay going tonight in the NHL, looking to keep that going. Also have one game up in baseball. That's all I have right now is one game. Might add something, but I do have a best bet on the diamond tonight. I think this game sticks out from the rest of the card, and therefore made it a best bet. You can get that right now at WagerTalk.com.
One up there at the site. Being selective is a good thing for Dave Koken. He's also up over 70% here in the NHL bankroll increase. So check that out as well on the ice. And we got Steve Merrill here. It is a Tuesday. Steve, good to have you on the show, buddy. Welcome in.
Thanks, Drew. Great to be here as always. And the NBA playoffs, don't forget, officially start tonight with the play-in round. And I do have an NBA best bet tonight in that play-in round right now at WagerTalk.com. Also looking to add a baseball best bet as well. I'm waiting for a starting pitcher to be confirmed here before I load it right after the show. And a quick reminder, this is what I think is the most profitable time of the year, and WagerTalk has a great 3-month special right now for $5.97. It's 90 days all sports for just $5.97. And today only, if you buy my 3-month special for $5.97, I'm including an additional $50 in wager bucks added back to your account, and that's today only. So get that 3-month summer pass and get an additional $50 wager buck credit today only. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, good deal there, guys. 3 months of action. Steve, real quick, with the NBA play-in games, I guess the expansion of the playoffs here, one, are you a fan of it? And 2, what differences would you look for to tell sports bettors out there maybe to get a little edge this time of year in the NBA playoffs?
Well, what I love about the NBA postseason versus the regular season, which can be a train wreck this year, especially with all the guys, the load management, everybody's sitting. It was really ridiculous what went on in the regular season. So I'm looking forward to the postseason because we're going to get a true handicap in which we get, the 7-game series. And basically all this is a play-in for the 7 and 8 seeds. It's a couple games here over the next 4 days. I think it's a great format. It kept more teams live and active during the regular season. It also made the top 6 seeds a little more valuable. So I think the NBA got it right. But from a handicapping standpoint, I think it'll pretty much be the same as always and really no difference going forward.
All right, good stuff, Steve. And always like to ask questions on what would sports that the guys like. Steve knows basketball and baseball here, so we'll get his opinion here on these 4 games and best bets at the end, guys. We got a happy hour special. First game up here, 6:40 Eastern time. We're talking about the Cincinnati Reds and the San Francisco Giants. First game up here, Dave, we get DeSclafani going for the Giants. DeSclafani's been good. And Luis Castillo going for the Reds. Overall, Dave, some of his numbers year long, not very good, up over a 7 ERA. But we are seeing the Reds laying a price here, -130, actually down to -120 now, total of 8 or 8.5, depending where you're shopping. Are you interested in anything here, Giants and Reds, Dave?
On paper, if you look at the pitching matchup, you got to favor DeSclafani because he's having a tremendous season for the Giants. And Castillo, for whatever reason, is just not getting the job done for Cincinnati. You try and find out why or figure out why, and it's just not apparent because his velocity is okay. But he's not missing bats, and he's had command issues, and not a guy I want to back right now. The problem is, and this is something it's tough to actually quantify this, but I don't like pitchers going in against the team they basically had spent their whole career with. And that's what DeSclafani's doing here. We've seen just a couple examples in the last few days. John Lester goes back into Chicago, very emotional return, did not pitch well. We saw Matt Harvey, who was actually had a surprisingly good year for the Orioles. Goes into Queens, pitching against his former team, the Mets, for the first time. He got knocked all over the place. I can still remember going back some years when Pedro Martinez had left the Red Sox and gone to the Mets. And Pedro, at that point, was still a very good pitcher. And he went back into Fenway Park, and I mean, everybody was betting him that. Oh, boy, he's going to be completely fired up. Going against the Red Sox is going to be a huge game for Pedro. Got knocked out in the first inning. He was an absolute emotional wreck. I think sometimes these pitchers get too fired up to face their old team. I'd rather see a pitcher in his usual routine. So that gets me a little nervous about DeSclafani tonight. And it's really, as much as anything, the reason I'm staying out of the game. The offensive numbers favor the Reds. They're a very good offensive team at home. Giants, of course, have late inning problems. Their bullpen's not very good. But it's just one of those games where I've got too much on the pitching side with DeSclafani, but I don't like the situation for him, and I'm unwilling to back Castillo at this point. That's a long way of saying I'm passing the game.
Yeah, no, good analysis there, Dave, and great point with DeSclafani coming back to his old team. Yeah, that we have seen some pitchers struggle in that case. Steve, how much do you bring that into account, and what are you thinking here, Giants and Reds?
No, I mean, he might be passing, Dave, but I think that was great analysis as well. And it's an interesting angle you bring up. The go-to default thinking is, hey, this guy's going to be fired up. He's going to go get him. But a lot of times these guys are in the back half of their career, of course, is another problem. Martinez wasn't capable of bringing it anymore at that point, and maybe Harvey will see this year as well. But I think another reason is because those teams know the pitcher well. They maybe didn't face him, but they coached him. They have notes on him. They know him. And I think that's a lot of it. It's like in college football when we see a guy go against, his former assistant or whatnot, or vice versa. So I think that's an interesting angle to follow. Makes a lot of sense. And, as you said, Castillo's been awful. So it's hard to back the Reds even with that angle. So maybe we look at the over 8. I think that would make a lot of sense because Castillo, a 7.7 ERA on the season. Reds bullpen has not been good either. So it's hard to imagine the Giants can't get some runs here. If DeSclafani has that, return home letdown or problems like Dave talked about, the Reds should get some runs as well. And the Reds have been an explosive offensive team at times this year, and they're in great current form here. They've had double-digit hits now in 7 of their last 9 games. So I think over 8 makes a lot of sense in this one.
Actually, yeah, that was great analysis by both of you guys. Over the 8, we are seeing 8.5, so it looks like the market's bouncing up as well. One interesting note here, Rogers has gone back-to-back days, the closer for the Giants for the last 5 days. Both of these bullpens not very good, so maybe a lot pointing towards the over in the first game here, guys. Next game up, 7:40 Eastern time. We're talking the Washington Nationals and the Chicago Cubs. We're seeing Zach Davies and Patrick Corbin going here, Steve. We're seeing Corbin in the Nationals now minus 120 favorites, 8.5 being the total. So a little bump up here towards the Nationals. But minus 120 favorites here. The Nats, you interested in anything Nats and Cubs tonight, Steve?
Well, these have definitely been two teams, I guess. I don't want to say they've underachieved because I think both Dave and I both thought, Chicago and Washington were dicey coming into the season. But they're teams that, did have potential to be good, or at least the general public thought so. And right now we've got the Cubs at 20-20 on the season. We've got the Nationals. What are they now? I think 16-21. But it does look like both offenses are in pretty good current form. The Nationals have been just a bipolar team for several years offensively. They put up those 22 hits, 17 runs against Arizona back on, I believe Friday. And then, just 4 runs after that, 3 runs. They have hit the ball, though. They've had 10 hits or more in 3 of their last 6 games, including those 22 hits last Friday. And I think they're capable of getting to Davies here. Has not been good this season. Meanwhile, Chicago looks in pretty good current form here. They've won 3 of their last 4. They've had 9 hits or more now in 6 straight games. And 5 of those 6 came on the road, so it wasn't the wind blowing out in Wrigley. They're hitting the ball at Cleveland and Detroit. And then that carried over to the first game yesterday against Washington, a 7-3 win. So I think, once again, the over makes sense here. A current total I'm seeing in this one, Drew, is 8.5 to the over, minus $1.15. So as long as it stays below that key number of 9, I would lean towards the over, especially with Davies struggling this year for Chicago.
Sure. And Patrick Corbin over a 6 ERA himself, Dave. Although he has been better of late, 11 strikeouts, no walks his last 2 starts here. Dave, what are you thinking for the Nats and the Cubs?
Yeah, Corbin seems to have figured things out. And I don't know that he's ever going to get back to where he was a few years ago when he was really one of the best pitchers in the game. I think at this point he's probably a middle to back end of the rotation guy, and that means he's going to have inconsistency. But at least he's coming in decent form. Flip side of it, you really never know what you're going to get out of Davies, but this looks like a lineup he might have some success against. And breaking it down to the simplest thing, Cubs have been a good home team. They've been awful on the road. They're 6-12 away from home, but at home they're 14-8, not bad at all. Nationals, not a very good road team. Run differential slightly favors the Cubs. They are at least on the right side of 500, if you will, as far as runs scored, runs against goes. The Nationals are on the wrong side of it. With the price being where it is, I think there is a little value to be had on the Cubs. I don't think it's a strong play by any means, but I'd look at the home team to win this one.
All right, liking the Cubs in Wrigley. Guys, 2 games left. Best bets at the end. Shout out to the chat box now. Jessica, late to the party, but you're here. We got Abel in the house, Abby as well, Anthony, all welcome in. Nathan, proud Babylonian, as always. Good to see you live. And if you're watching on replay, that's okay, guys. Feel free to leave a comment below. Please smash the like button. If you are liking the content, it does help us out. We got Pittsburgh and St. Louis up next. It's an interesting handicap here, Dave. We're getting Brubaker going for the Pirates. He's been good. And Gant going for the Cardinals. 7:45 start here. Looks like 69 degrees, 13-mile-an-hour crosswinds in St. Louis. You liking anything Pirates and Cardinals tonight, Dave?
Well, it's an interesting betting line here because, first of all, it's gone down quite a bit. I think it opened 150, and it's sure not there anymore. So there's been money on the Pirates, and I think that's explainable on a couple of counts. One, Brubaker's been good for the Pirates. He's an old rookie, kind of not a rookie because he was with them last year, but the way it's set up this year, he still qualifies as a rookie. And he's looked good. Gant is one of those guys who has sell written all over him because his underlying metrics are really not good at all. He's had control problems. He's not a dominant pitcher. His ERA is completely phony. And this is a guy, I think the market is doing this. I'll get into a little detail here. Many years ago, there was a pitcher named Jeff Locke for the Pirates. He was a left-hander. And he kept on winning games, despite the fact his metrics were absolutely horrendous. And I will tell you that I kept betting against the guy because it's like he's not supposed to be pitching at this level. There's nothing that indicates these numbers are legit, and I'm going to go against him because that's the value. And I must have lost, 9 out of 10 bets going against him because the one mistake I made was I didn't wait for the crash to occur. It eventually did, and he basically went from being an all-star to being out of the majors in a short time. So the metrics did eventually become truisms. I think that's going to happen with Gant. The problem is you have to wait for it to start to happen, and it hasn't started to happen yet. Gant is getting lucky at this point, but as long as his luck holds out, I'm not going to go into that fade Gant routine. On the other hand, I don't want to play on him because all the metrics suggest there's a major regression coming for this right-hander. So take that for what it's worth. I don't know what to tell you on this game, basically because of that. All I can tell you is I'm waiting for that bad game from Gant because once you get the bad game, that's the sell sign, and that's the time to start going against him.
Dave, that was a great comparison. I was exactly picking up what you were laying down with Locke. I remember he was an all-star. I was going against him. I was just getting into the industry a couple years ago. And about Gant, I've never seen this, Dave. 34 innings and 27 walks, and with an ERA as low as that. Have you ever seen numbers like that?
Well, yeah, in short terms. But the thing is, I've called it the Jeff Locke syndrome for years because I'll never forget how much money that cost me. I was insistent on going. This guy is supposed to get crushed, and the problem is I didn't wait for the crush to start happening. I learned that lesson that year, and that's several years ago, and I've never deviated from that. So when I see a guy like Gant, who is clearly getting extremely good fortune right now, I'm not going to try and guess when it's going to happen. I'm going to wait for it to happen. Then I'll make my move.
All right. I like it, Dave. And Steve, coming to you next. Brubaker going for the Pirates here. The former Akron Zip, he's been good. Do you think it's worth going against Gant here?
Yeah, as you guys know, I like to use a lot of financial market analogies. I always talk about trying to catch that falling knife, and that's exactly what Dave's talking about with Gant. You don't want to try to guess when that knife's going to bottom. You wait to see it happen, and we're going to have plenty of opportunities when it does start to fall because they'll keep them in the rotation longer than they should. That's what these teams do, especially with the guy that's been around. And the other thing I want to point out about Gant and how overrated he is, as Dave referenced, 1.84 ERA, 1.63 WHIP. 1.84 ERA is fantastic. A 1.6 WHIP is not even Major League Baseball. And I like ERA. It's better than, first of all, win-loss record for a pitcher, the most overrated stat in all of sports. We all agree with that. ERA is pretty good, but WHIP is better because it's walks and hits per innings pitched. And like you're saying, Drew, he's had a lot of walks. And with hits at an all-time record low for 150 years in baseball, walks are even more important nowadays. So it's like giving up a hit at least. So he puts guys on base. Bad things eventually happen, especially in the modern era when we're hitting 2-3-run homers. It's just a matter of time. So, yeah, there's some good value to be had, as Dave said, fading Gant. And we're getting an underdog price with Pittsburgh to do so. Now, there's definitely no value with the worst team in baseball. At least the projected worst team coming into the season is only a $1.05 dog. But keep in mind, Pittsburgh's over-under was 59.5. I mentioned here in our preview show for the National League that we all did together, I liked them over 59.5. They still got to get 43 wins to get to 60 at some point this season. These are the type of games they need to win. They're going to win. And I like playing Pittsburgh when they're in decent current form. It worked last year. They were either god-awful or they went on some runs. They struggled against San Diego, a little bit against the Cubs, the Cincinnati Reds, but then they just split against San Francisco. It's been a very good team. This is a little bit of a step down in class here against a bad starter on the road at St. Louis. So this does look like the spot to play the Pirates tonight as a small dog.
I just want to drop in one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Cardinals are getting it done against losing teams. They're 8-12 against winning teams. That means they're 15-6 against non-winning teams. So they've been beating up on teams like the Pirates. We'll see if that continues here.
Guys, we got one game left. It is the nightcap, 9:40 Eastern, 6:40 Pacific here. We're talking the Houston Astros and Oakland A's in the American League West Division here, Steve. We're seeing 15-mile-an-hour winds blowing out towards center field in Oakland, 57 degrees. We get Javier, the 24-year-old Dominican, going for the Stros, and Sean Manaea, the lefty, going for the A's. Tightly contested game, at least that's what the market's telling us here. Pretty much a pick 'em price, seeing -110 for the Astros now, Steve. Total of 8. You liking anything Stros and A's late night?
Well, it's funny, Dave just mentioned that winning record against winning teams isn't good for St. Louis. I'm sure he remembers last year when we were doing a lot of these first pitch shows together, we talked about Oakland. I think as they went into the postseason, they'd hardly faced any winning teams all year with that, stacked Western schedule or whatnot. And they, of course, got exposed by the veteran Astros who'd finished behind them in the regular season. Houston has just owned this Oakland team, and it's the main reason Oakland started 1-7 this year is because they got swept early on in April. You take out that 1-7 start, the A's are 24-10 in all other games since, but they're still just 11-13 against winning teams this year versus 14-4 against losing teams. And then we look at the wily Houston Astros, who might not be cheating anymore, but they still know how to win apparently. 24-7, but 14-9 against winning teams, just 10-8 otherwise. So Houston's had their number. If you look at the pitching matchup, at least statistically, we're getting the better starter tonight on the mound, better ERA, better WHIP. So until I see otherwise, the A's are that falling knife when it comes to playing the Houston Astros right now. It's really hard to play anything, but Houston is a small favorite in this one.
All right, Dave. And are you interested in getting involved late, looking towards the Stros maybe like Steve is?
Well, I'm leaning that way. And it just breaks down to the numbers. I mean, on the team stuff, the Astros are plus 56 runs on the season. Oakland is -8. So, you got a team that's 8 games over 500, and yet they've been outscored by the opposition. That indicates some regressions coming for the Oakland A's because they're basically playing at a 500 level, but they're winning the close games. The Astros are just killing the baseball right now. Over the last 7 days, their WRC plus is 142, which is insane. And the A's, their WRC plus over the last 7 days, it's pretty good at 111, but it pales by comparison. I agree with Steve on the comparison between Javier and Manaea. I don't think it's a big edge, but there's definitely an edge to be had on the Javier side. And let's face it, Houston is dominating this baseball team. So you add it all together, and I think you've got enough to support a play on the Astros.
Yeah, looking towards the Astros late. I second that. Although Christian Javier, he has been good this year. The last 3 starts, the walks are up a little bit, 11 earned runs. But still, guys, I do agree with the Astros as the play. Like Dave talked about, 142, I believe, so 42% above average there, weighted runs created plus. Guys, that does it for the 4 games we're breaking down on tonight's slate. We got best bets coming up, but first going to throw it over to the other side of the world. Tokyo Brandon with his Asian baseball quick pick. Tokyo Brandon, take it away.
Thanks, Drew. Tokyo Brandon here with today's Asian baseball quick pick. We cashed with Oryx yesterday on to Hiroshima. The Yomiuri Giants are going to Mazda Zoom Zoom to play the Hiroshima Carp. Hiroshima has just lost some of their best hitters for virus protocol, while the starting pitcher for Hiroshima is Kuri, and he did handle the Giants in his last start, holding them to 2 runs in 8 innings. That was back in April, and since then they've added Justin Smoke. Zealous Wheeler is on an absolute tear, and their best hitter Okamoto has finally found his swing. So we're going to go with the Yomiuri Giants. I'll take them on the regular run line -1.5. That's the pick for today. I'll be back with more. Thanks, guys.
You can get that at plus price. Sounds like a little COVID fade, COVID pause fade here in the Asian baseball quick pick. That game is in the Tokyo Dome on the other side of the world. Late night action tonight. So, guys, time for best bets. We got Dave Koken, Steve Merrill here. Check out Dave Koken, Wager Talk, at his expert page. He's the #1 handicapper in baseball from last season. Dave, where are you looking at going for best bets tonight, buddy?
And again, there's a hockey parlay up tonight, and one best bet in baseball, I think it is the standout play on the card. You can check that out right now and hopefully get that one to the winner's circle. Game we just talked about. I think there's enough here, and it just missed making my card. But I do think the Astros look like the right side tonight as they take on the Oakland A's. I don't think you're getting penalized on the price at all. So from that standpoint, Houston looks like a decent wager tonight. I'll take the Astros.
All right, liking the Stros late night, 9:40 Eastern first pitch there. And Steve, where are you going for best bets tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to look at the Tampa Bay Rays -1.50 against the Orioles. You know, I don't put too much stock into home field advantage in baseball other than batting in the bottom of the 9th. Strategically, it's about the only edge, I think. And home road dichotomies, I don't want to read too much into it because it's early in the season still. But Tampa just 11-12 at home, yet 12-7 on the road. Baltimore 6-15 at home despite 11-8 on the road. Orioles have played a really tough schedule, by the way, guys. 35 of their 40 games have been against above 500 teams so far, but they're just 14-21 in those games. Tampa, I think we've got the buy sign with them. This is another team that's underachieved coming into the season. They were just 19-19 halfway through that Yankee series last week. They got the final win. They've won 4 straight since, and I think that's the buy sign. Good momentum with them. They've had 7 runs or more in 3 of those 4 wins, double-digit hits in 3 of those 4 wins as well. Baltimore, meanwhile, is in a bit of a slump. They've lost 7 out of 9. And something we didn't bring up here is righty and lefty starters ending the games today, but I think it applies to this one. 2 right-handed starters, you know, on the surface, say nothing strange about that. That's normally what we see in baseball. By the way, Patino's going. He only goes a few innings. The Rays' bullpen is good, and they're rested, so I'd like the pitching edge there as well. But Baltimore has really struggled against righties this year, and they're about 50 points lower batting average. They average about a run and a half less per 9 innings. They have almost double the strikeouts. And, you know, once again, you face mostly right-handed pitchers. So I think that's legit. We get the pitching edge, the offensive edge, and we get a short price because it's on the road. But as I just established, there's really no home advantage for Baltimore at all in this game. So Tampa Bay Rays -1.50. That goes at 7 Eastern tonight on Tuesday.
All right, liking the Rays. And, guys, I'll finish it off here with the first game, the happy hour special here, the Giants and Reds. I like the Giants. I think the wrong team is favored here. We get the better starting pitcher, at least in current form, Anthony DeSclafani on the hill, +108 here on the Giants. And he hasn't faced Cincinnati yet this year. He's actually faced the Padres, which I have as an above-average lineup 3 times this season, giving up 7 earned runs in 16 innings to them. Outside of that, he's been great, 2.14 ERA this season. And Luis Castillo on the other side, not been very good, over a 7.7 ERA. And he faced the San Francisco Giants on April 13th. gave up a lot of hard hits, went 5 innings, 7 hits, 7 Ks, 2 home runs, and 4 earned runs in that game. So we get the Giants, plus 36 run differential. Cincinnati, a negative run differential here. The Giants up 8 units on the season. So guys, I think the Giants are the play here. Best bet, San Francisco Giants in the first game, 6:40 Eastern time. So guys, for the recap on the best bets, we get Dave Koken, Steve Merrill. We got Steve on the Tampa Bay Rays -150. Dave, Astros, pretty much at the pick'em price there, -110. And I am on the Giants +108 as the underdog, and Tokyo Brandon there in the Giants. On the other side of the world there in Japan, run line -1.5, +145 on that in a COVID pods fade opportunity. So for Dave Koken, Steve Merrill, I am Drew Martin. Guys, we will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, right here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel, 1:45 Eastern time. Best of luck with your bets until then. Thanks for tuning in.
Sign up for the free WagerTalk text club to gain access to free plays and exclusive discounts. Just text WagerTalk to 33222 to sign up and get a $10 coupon to use on WagerTalk.com.